And so, the SEL piece is really focused on self-care, mental health, to give kids the space and the ability and tools to manage those stresses. Things have changed quite a bit, and I think we have to make the adjustment as the adults working with youth as well to support them as best as possible. Our
What's going on, Nick? Man, thank you for coming to the FT interview talks. And I have some exciting questions to ask you before we get into all of that good stuff, right? Because we've known each other for a little while, and I feel like I could spend 2 hours just talking about who you are.
Yes.
Why don't you tell the audience who you are?
My name is Nick Figueroa. I'm the director of the Brown Collegiate Scholars Program. I am a longtime resident of Providence, um, and community advocate, civil rights, social justice, you name it, human rights, all of these things bundled into one or many of the things I've been involved in during my time here.
And how did you get into, because I know you from the state, I know you from the district, you worked in so many different positions, advocating for what you just said. How did you get into that specific path?
Yeah, I back in 1995, I got to attend the Million Man March down in Washington, D.C. And it was quite an experience, and the overall message that day was to come back into our communities and contribute in a positive way, whatever way that was. So the message of self-atonement and coming back and giving back to your community. So um, I came back here and I figured, okay, what can I, as a youngster in Providence, what can I do? What can I get involved in? And I think one of my first organized actions was to become a member of the NAACP, of the Woonsocket branch, and actually became first vice president of that branch. Um, and from there, kind of things just took off.
Honestly, I feel like when you have a calling or like some sort of purpose, you kind of just slide into it, right? You kind of just catch yourself doing it. And I know you're from New York, and eventually you made your way down to Rhode Island. Was it the advocacy work that brought you down here? Was it something else?
Family. I was a teenager. I didn't. I didn't necessarily have a choice to come to Providence, and for me as a teenager, as teenagers are, I hated being here, because Providence was different back then. There weren't as many things as there are to do now, and I didn't know anybody except for my cousins who were here. But looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. And now I love Providence. And yesterday I was in New York at a Yankees game, and to me, there's no feeling like driving back and seeing the sign that says "Welcome to Connecticut," because it tells me that I'm pointed back in the direction of Rhode Island. Yeah.
So now we adopted you. That's it. Yeah, it kind of sounds like, it kind of sounds like
Fed me, so now I'm here. Now I'm here.
you went to Broad Street, you had some of the food there, and that's it. So, I mean, you could have gotten, when it comes to advocacy, right? There's so many different ways that you could advocate, and so many different industries that you can advocate for the same audience. I'm just curious, why did education kind of capture you specifically?
Yeah, I think understanding the world around me, you know, um, and this was a progression, as a young person and growing into adulthood. This was a progression of understanding. Um, so college for me changed my life completely. Like, it was, I'm a learner by nature. And once I got into college, it was an opportunity to meet different people and talk about ideas and philosophy, things that I wasn't accustomed to speaking about. Um, and that kind of, made me very much interested in education. because I knew that in order to live the type of life that I wanted to live, and that type of life would be one that one that is raising a family and doing good things. Um, Education was a path to doing that. Now, I got into the profession when I first went into healthcare. Like that was my first professional stop, and I did that for 5 years with Harvard Health. Um, and there came a time where I was like, okay, this insurance stuff is not, it's not for me. So I thought about what I could do next, and I recall people who were influential in my life with at the university where I went to, and at the community college as well, because that was my first stop. I said, yeah, I want to do that work. Like I want to help young people, get to this place where I felt a lot had changed for me because of the experience. So that was my segue into education, and then obviously when you're in it, you just get to learn more and more and more, and you really get to understand the importance of it and how it changes communities and economies and politics and everything else in between.
Right, and I think while being in the inside, the more you learn how important the diversity of voices are, right? Especially when it comes to the level of decision makers who are kind of on the behalf of the groups making decisions that might not sit well or might not be well researched in terms of what you're trying to do. Having good intentions but can create some sort of harm. And that's what kind of brought me into the space of advocacy work as well. And I'm wondering if you had like one specific experience, right? Like I know you saw the need, but I'm wondering if there's one specific experience that you were like, okay, this is, after experience this, I know this is what I have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are several. Um, in When I moved here, I lived on the east side, on Pleasant Street, kind of like the lower side of the east side. And for me, well, and for a lot of the kids in the neighborhood and families in the neighborhood, um, we would have run-ins with law enforcement, and that could be from just walking, like and or going to a sandwich shop and trying to get a sandwich or something. So, and it didn't feel right to me. And in New York, I never experienced that. As NYPD has a reputation, but I luckily was never privy to any of those experiences. But I think here, seeing that, and also um, being in Providence during the essentially the birth of the crack epidemic, seeing how that went in and destroyed neighborhoods, I knew something had to be done, and there were plenty of of folks in the community that were in that struggle, trying to make things right for the community. So I love all of them, appreciate them, and I think that just those influences help me decide, yeah, this is, we've got to combat this in some way, shape, or form. And as someone that didn't have any particular um, idea of how to do it, going through my own educational experience, I said, this is one of those ways to be able to do it. So, yeah, I've been doing it ever since, essentially. So, yeah.
So, I mean, you're the director. Yes. Excuse me, you're a director at Brown, and you're specifically focused on the Collegiate Scholar Program. So it kind of sounds, we're going to get into that a little bit, but from what I'm hearing so far, it almost sounds, and what I know from the program, almost sounds like you collected all those experiences, right? Everything that you've experienced, the audience that you're trying to help, and you're literally creating a program to solve that problem, right? Yes. And so why don't you tell us a little bit more about that program that you're building, where we are and where it's gonna go.
Yes. So first, I have to extend my, I give a shout out to President Paxson because um, she is someone that's very committed to this work and has really helped to shape this program, this process, and of course attach resources to it, which is very important. So the Brown Collegiate Scholars Program, you're right, it is an accumulation of experiences and ideas all put together. A lot of it is not new, right? So there are other programs out there that do similar work. But here is an opportunity to work with Providence School students, Providence District students currently, and looking at what their needs may be. So we know what the pipeline is for Providence students into post-secondary. We know what the graduation rates are at the state institutions in Rhode Island versus the private ones as well. So here what we've done is instead of waiting until junior and senior year to talk about college and go through the college access journey, we're starting with students in the 9th grade, so rising freshmen. Then also understanding the district and what the needs are of students in the district, attaching both English language art and math, particularly algebra, support. So we'll have courses over the summer. Youth development is another big component because I want to make sure that we're building a bench for future leaders, right? And I think in many cases, historically, there have been times where that bench has not been built, or there hasn't been someone there to build it. And so I want to make sure that that is part of the process, that we're doing this youth development work that other nonprofits, other great youth-serving nonprofits are doing as well. And the last piece is social emotional learning. So given what's happened with COVID, the learning loss, the socialization loss, we want to help students with tools to help them navigate today's world. I think about like my generation and the generation since 2000 moving forward that's been in schools. When in my school days, I didn't have to worry about getting shot at school. Right. I would just worry about like, we having pizza today, we having brownies. What can I negotiate to get but today's children, unfortunately, go through even shooter drills at their schools. That is not normal, right? Or it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And so, the SEL piece is really focused on self-care, mental health, to give kids the space and the ability and tools to manage those stresses. Things have changed quite a bit, and I think we have to make the adjustment as the adults working with youth as well to support them as best as possible. Our work is really about them, and as an educator yourself, our work is really about kids and positioning them to be successful and as good as possible, like in their lives as well.
It's interesting. I love the idea that you're introducing, or the program is introducing students to college at 9th grade, because I remember my experience when I first learned about college, and it was when I was in 11th grade, and it's because I was taking my SATs, right? And so at that point, that's when I had the whole conversations like, hey, you really need to do well in your SATs because you need to start thinking about what college you want to go to. And I'm like, wait, what? How does an SAT even connect to a college? Yes. Like, how does it test? I'm a high school, I'm taking various different tests just throughout the year, and I'm trying to figure out, well, why is this test going to determine what college I go to, right? So I was, even during that conversation, I was kind of more confused than anything. So I think it's so important that it starts very early. And, in addition to the information that's very important for these students, what are some other problems that this will solve for like the public school student? I know you mentioned some social emotional learning that's involved with the program. So, that's more than just, hey, let's prep for college. That's let's prep for life kind of element, right?
Yeah. So I think a couple of other things. We're trying to have impact over student proficiency levels. I believe in Providence, according to RICAS last year, 16% students were proficient in ELA and 13% were efficient in math. And those are, as you know, those numbers are super low. And so the hope is with our summer programming, so each summer students will have math and ELA support until senior year. And we're hoping that with that additional work over the summer, like it'll either get kids caught up or support the learning that they have done during the course of the school year, or in some cases even put them slightly ahead in order to increase their proficiency. The other piece is attendance, right? Because you have to show up, you have to show up. And so part of what we're trying to do is create an environment that is fun for young people, right? Because if they show up to our program, then more than likely they're going to show up to school and participate in class and do all of these things that they should be doing. We have an issue with absences in the district, and hopefully this is a way to kind of chip away at that and get students back into school buildings.
Right, and unfortunately, I'm familiar with those statistics, so I know how important this program is, and this is why we're talking about it, right? Because even though you yourself mentioned that it's not necessarily a program that's fairly new, it's still something that's very much in need, right? You mentioned the proficiency numbers, you mentioned the attendance numbers. Wondering, are you going to use like those numbers to measure success, or how are you guys going to go about measuring that success?
That's a good question. We are going to use attendance as a success metric. We're also going to look at student grades, students' STAR assessments at the start of the school year, at the end of the school year, to see where the growth lies in between. And from our own standpoint, we'll be doing assessments. One of them will be the Myers-Briggs Strengths Assessment, just to use that as a tool to have students learn a bit more about themselves and their abilities and their personality and so forth, along with parents as well. So we'll do the assessment with them too.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That part, you got me at that part with the parents. So it sounds like the parents are gonna also be involved in this whole process. Yes. Like it's not just, oh, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So in my former life, I was an admissions officer. And so when I traveled the country, in many cases, I met with families, not just a student, but the entire family, right? So I learned through that process that it is a family affair, right? And so here we're trying to create a pathway, and we're trying to increase proficiency. We have to include families in the process, right? So the reason why parents will take the strengths assessment is so that they can also get to see what their personality strengths are, right? Because then they can have conversations with their kids about what their strengths are as their children. Because many times, even myself, like as a parent, we may make the mistake or the assumption that our kids are supposed to be just like us, right? And it's like, okay, why isn't this child doing this the way I would have done it? Right. Well, guess what? They're a different human being.
Right,
they're a different, they're not you, right? And so when you have those assessments, it's a starting point to say, particularly as a parent, okay, this is why I'm not getting through, or this is why when we're missing each other here and there. It's sort of a way to bridge and encourage growth within the students' academics, but also within the understanding of the family as it operates. So yeah, families are incredibly important here. They're incredibly important in the Providence School District. Right. So for us, we'll also be providing financial literacy training for them, financial aid training for them. We want to make sure that by the time we get to 12th grade and students are applying to colleges and universities, that the parents are fully aware of what the financial aid process is going to be, what they're responsible for, what they may not be responsible for, what a scholarship is, scholarships in the sense of, merit or need-based, right. That sort of thing. So yeah, it's essential to bring families in and to make them a part of this process. We're even going to take them on college visits when we do college visits. That's amazing. They'll have the option to join us because then that may also break the stigma of, oh, you're not going to go live that far, and I don't know anything about this. So now it's an opportunity to actually go and visit schools and see what it's like, what campus life can be like.
It's so important that you mentioned the parent element, because even from my personal experience when I used to be an enrollment service officer, the conversations will be very different when I'm having it with one student versus like with the family, right? A lot of times, because at that point the students are old enough to take out their loans and sign for themselves and stuff like that. But every time there was, a parent involved that would make more financial sound decisions, right? For instance, like students, they wouldn't have known, or parents wouldn't have known that when they accept loans, that you can just accept to pay off the bill, right? Like you don't have to take the whole entire loan. That's just one example, right? And from my experience, just teaching families and stuff like that, some parents would opt to that, like, oh, I didn't know we had to, because we don't need that, the entire financial aid or something like that. So it's very important to have that collaborative space. So it sounds like this program is very partnership oriented. So you're gonna have the parents involved. Just wondering if there's other organizations that you guys have involved, other partners, to make this sustainable.
Internally, we're partnering with the Annenberg Institute. Okay. So our school year component, I mentioned summer, but our school year component is going to have one-on-one advising, after school tutoring, and mentoring as well. Okay. And so Annenberg will be assisting us with tutors. The Swear Center will be assisting us with mentors for kids. So we've had conversations with the folks in UEP, the Urban Education Planning graduate program, the teachers program that Brown also has. So it's been a very supportive and collaborative effort internally. Externally, we're partnering with for this summer with Young Voices to help deliver the youth leadership component, because they're really good at that, and so we want to make sure that we can get that for our students. We're also looking to we're going to partner with Leadership Rhode Island for the Myers-Briggs assessment, and we have an instructor who has worked with Inspiring Minds in the past around SEL, so that person will be delivering that content. And I'm hopeful that next year we'll be able to bring in Arise and partner with them as well. Wow. And college visits. I'm sorry, I can't forget.
Yeah.
College visits.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that Brown, as an institution, is it sounds like they really want to get into the community. It sounds like they really want to respect that voice, which is kind of refreshing, to be completely honest, right? And it sounds like that's what kind of makes this program different than, you know, programs that existed in the past. And maybe you can share some more insight as to how this program is different from, you know, maybe ones that Brown have done before, and all of that stuff. Because it sounds like a lot of stakeholders are involved, a lot of organizations in the community, right?
Yes. So I think my understanding is that the past initiative that did take place was more of student driven. So undergraduates at Brown working to create college access for kids. And I believe they may have worked with the admissions office at Brown once upon a time, maybe in the 90s. So this goes back. I think here the idea of it takes a village is true, right? Because not only getting the support from Brown to do this type of work, but also working with folks in the community, particularly those who already do this type of work,
Right.
you know, makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, my interest, and I know others as well, is that the students win at the end of the day, right? And what winning means is, like, you know, increasing your proficiency, increasing your attendance, leaving this program knowing how to put a resume together, knowing how to put a cover letter together, you know, filling out a FAFSA, because that can, as you know, that can be tricky, and of course getting into college and being active on your college campus once you get there. It's all important stuff.
Right. Wow, man. That's a lot of, that's a lot of great work that's happening. Where can people, if they want to get involved, if they want to support the work, if they just want to keep in touch with what's going on, where can they find this information just so they can stay involved?
So we have a website, bcsp.brown.edu. So they can just visit that webpage, and from there they can read more about the program. They can also follow us on social media. I don't remember those tags off the top of my head, but we are we're on Instagram and Facebook, and we also have a YouTube page as well.
All right. Well, Nick, thank you so much for sharing the program, and thank you for coming on to the podcast and just sharing about the great work that's happening in Providence, with Brown. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what this is going to look like in a couple years. I know it's getting started now, but it's already very promising, the fact that you guys have partnered up with a lot of community members. So thank you so much, man, and I'm sure we'll have you back, especially after this program is already implemented.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.